Good morning, Flosstube. It's Caroline in Leeds in West Yorkshire in the UK. I'm just jumping on here quickly to record a new video. This will be video number 18. It's Sunday the 11th of July 2021 and it's sort of a very muggy day here in West Yorkshire. The sun was shining when I started getting ready to record, but by the time I got everything together it's clouded over, and I've had to put the room light on because it's got so murky. Welcome to my Flosstube channel. This is a channel that's mostly about cross stitch and knitting with occasional forays into quilting and reading. So I'd like to welcome everyone who's a subscriber and who's a returning viewer. Thank you very much for coming back to check me out, and anyone who's watching me for the first time, you're very welcome here. I hope you will subscribe, and please, I love getting comments and likes, so please feel free. It's going to have to be quick today because it's my son's birthday party this afternoon. But if I didn't get it done this week, July will be almost done before I got over. We've had a pretty rough end of June, beginning of July, because my daughter caught COVID at school, and so we've all been in isolation. On the plus side, that's meant a bit of extra time for stitching because I wasn't coming to commute to work, although I was just working from home. But it was tough this time round. But we're through, she's fine, everyone's back at work and into work and school for those of us who actually go into work and school. My husband's got another couple of weeks working from home. So we'll crack on with what I've been doing. In my last video, I said I was going to work on Jane Marshall from Hands Across the Sea until she was done. There's a picture of Jane, and I'm pleased to say that she is indeed finished. Here we go. So this is Jane Marshall. Very pleased with how she's come out. She's a lovely little sampler. It was quite enjoyable to work on. She mostly got worked on as holiday projects on my holidays when I've actually gotten to get away in the last year or so. I started her February 2020, and I bought the chart when Nicola and Sandra released her as a fundraiser for the Australian bushfires back in January of last year. So I started her in the February, finished her June this year. She is stitched on a piece of Expressions Even Weave by 32 count by Silk Weaver in the Days Gone By colourway. Now this is from Very Deep Stash, and was the old Silk Weaver company. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I was in their Fabric of the Month club back in the early 2000s, and a lot of my fabric dates from then. And I converted the colours into, I didn't have all the Averroisoire that the pattern called for, so on pulling the DMC I was just idly wondering if I had other silks that I could make it up from, and managed to convert it all to a variety of different Gloriana silks, of which I have a large stash because again in the early 2000s I was in the Traditional Stitches Collectors Programme, which is something I think they still run for a lot of stuff. You can sign up and they'll send you, I think they used to send me a couple of Glorianas every month. So yes, so when I picked her up in June, I just had this last bottom band to stitch. I think it was about halfway through on my last video, It's quite densely stitched, this little bottom band, compared to the rest of the sampler, but it's very beautiful. I do like it, and I'm very pleased to have her finished, so I need to investigate getting a frame for her now and seeing about getting her framed. So yeah, so that's Jane Marshall. Once I finished Jane, I moved on to my focus piece, which is an old class kit from C.A. Wells. It's called the Three-Sided Reticule. It's a little etui to hold your stitching things, and with a little pincushion as well. So I have, and I was on the last of the pieces of the etui. So I finished stitching this big triangle. I got that all, the stitching on that all finished, and then the last of the little triangles that form a little pincushion. So I have now finished all the stitching on the etui and the pincushion. So that's one of the panels, and that's the other panel and the other piece of the, you'll notice it's got 2020 in because I hoped I was going to actually finish the stitching last year, but it's over once, so I'm not frogging it. It can stay. This particular piece has 2006 on because that's when I took the class with CA through Hanging by a Thread in London. Sarah and Susan used to organise classes for us all. It's stitched using the kit materials that CA provided. She was getting very cagey about what they actually were by that point, and I think the silks are Karen, but don't quote me on that because again she was not telling us. So I think the variegated is a water lily of some description, and the others are soy crystal, but they feel like soy crystal when I'm stitching with them, which is why I think that's the case. So that's the etui all finished. There is another bit to go with this kit, which I'll talk about when I get to my plans. At that point I had one day left in June, so I pulled a whip out to work on for one night, and the whip that was next on the list in the pile was this kit from Krynic. It's called from the Remember the Ladies series that again is from the early 2000s. I don't know if they're widely available. I may find them popping up on Stash and Load and things like that. This is a design from Kathy Barrick when she was designing as Carriage House Samplings, and it's called Girls' Night Out. And this is where I'm up to. This is all being stitched over, this design is stitched over one intense stitch. And the kit, it's a kit that came with the silks. This is Krynic Milk Paint Silk Moire, and the kits were put out to promote the silks. It's beautiful muted colours. Absolutely love the colours on this one, and it was a gift many years ago from a friend who I put up for an American friend who I put up for the night, and she brought me the kit and kitted it up with some R&R linen in a colourway called Dawn's Early Light. So yeah, so it's absolutely tiny is the I put the needle beside what I did. Give you an idea of scale on this. So this time round I mostly got the taupe in those 2 boxes and a little bit more of light blue, but I was just making sure I'd got started and everything was in the right place. So there we go. Nice to get a little bit more progress on that one. It's really quite an undertaking when I get to it in the whip rotation, so I need to just keep plugging away at it, I think. And then I had my July the 1st new start, which I'll show in a minute, and then we were into the Blackbird Designs weekend stitch along with Brenda and Laura, although Brenda wasn't actually working on having just watched their latest video, wasn't actually working on it, Blackbird Designs, but yeah. So as I mentioned last time, what I'm working on for the Sal is Moon Garden, which is a very old Blackbird Designs. This was number 8 in the Loose Feathers series, and unfortunately it's long out of print. So yeah, I just put this down for the weekend when the very, very sad news came through about Barb having passed away. I love their designs, it's a real shame, and I hope that they Alma finds a way to keep stuff in print. Very, very sad news, and I send my condolences to Alma and Barb's family and everyone else who I never got to meet her, unfortunately, because I don't think she travelled to Europe very much. So, but yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying working on this one. I made some real progress on it. I have my big flower all done, so I'm probably about at the halfway point now. And yeah, because I had the flower outline last time, so mostly it was filling in the flower. I've done the moon. I made a little start on the border. So it's just the border and the alphabets really to go, and all the little doodads that Blackbird Designs like to put in. Yeah, this one, the model was actually stitched by Barb, so I'm thinking I will keep Barb's initials on there as a tribute, rather than and I'll put my own in somewhere else. Perhaps do the K in a different colour or something. Yeah. So very much enjoyed working on that one. It's always a lovely piece to get out, and I'm very grateful to Brenda and Laura for kicking the Sal off to make me get on with some of the many Blackbird Designs charts I've got in my stash. So yeah. So I'm stitching this on a piece of 32 count Sienna Night from Lakeside Linens. Again, this was a piece of linen that I got when I was in the Fabric of the Month Club from Silk Weaver, because they supplied Lakeside Linens at that point. So this dates back from the early 2000s. I don't know if that colourway is available anymore. And I'm stitching it using the called for Gentle Arts threads. The greens, the willow and the avocado are much yellower in my dye lots than they were in the original design, but I don't think, but they're really popping on my fabric, so I'm not actually thinking that's a problem. I mean, obviously this was designed in 2004, we're talking almost 20 years down the line in the dyeing process, so naturally the colours are going to be slightly different. But they all pop beautifully on this fabric, so I'm not worried so much about that. Then on to my new start. which was the Drawn Threads The Night Before Christmas Bell Pull. I'm actually double dipping this one in a couple of stitch alongs. It's July, so it's Christmas in July stitching, which is why I originally decided to make this my new start for July. And then I caught Colorado Stitcher's Flosstube, where she was talking about cross stitch camp. Now, I didn't see it in her video until into June, so I didn't join in June, but I figured I could probably get this one stitched in July. I'm not following on with her themes because that didn't fit with what I already had planned for this year, but I said I figured if I got on with it I could definitely stitch this in a month. This isn't the first time I've stitched this chart. The first time I did it for an exchange, and I actually stitched it over one, and it turned out very nice, but I'm not stitching it over one this time. So here we go. This is obviously being in self-isolation definitely helped with the stitching time on this one. There was a fair bit of stitching to stress release. So yeah, so I'm well past the halfway point, and just have the seam at the bottom to do, and the rest of the verse and the personalisation of the border. There's a few beads to go on. I lost my threads there, and yeah, as always with the drawn thread, it's a really nice one to stitch. I'll say it's stitching up really quickly. I'm using the Called for Gentle Arts threads for the design, and I'm stitching it on a piece of Sandstorm linen for 28 count from Silkweaver, again from very deep stash, so I'm afraid I have a huge stash of 28 and 32 count linen, so I do try not to buy any more if I have something suitable in my stash from the early 2000s. So yeah, so my plans for the rest of the month is mostly to finish this, which I should get done within the week actually, I reckon, if I sit down and get on with it, because I don't have that much more to do really. So yeah, so get this one finished, which is infinitely doable, and then it's back to the C.A. Wells class piece. Now, alongside the etui, she did a companion kit to line a Lauderay almond box. So I have the box and I have the kit. There is a band, an embroidered band that goes all the way around the side of there, and there's a little monogram to go up the top. So my plan for the rest of the month is to get cracking on the band and try and get it at least halfway done. You do CA's Sam and Bertha technique around the top, and then there's an over one bit of verse and some of the sort of wreath type stuff around the top, but also there's a lot of the, so I can find it, sort of buttonhole stitch, header bow stitch is the one I'm thinking of, that goes to the top. So this bit here goes to the top of all along the top of the band. So it might be a bit of a challenge to get it all done in 1 month, but we'll see how fast it goes. So yeah, so it's crack on with that. And if I get that finished, or I get to a point where I think I've done enough, I'll maybe pull one of my other whips out and get on with, and spend a little bit of time on one of those. So that's my stitching plans for the rest of July. Obviously when we get to August, I'll have a new start on the 1st of August. Again, I think this is one which I'll use for cross stitch camp because I think it will go, I will be, it's quite a small design, I think I can get that done in a month. And the first weekend in August, I imagine we'll be doing the Blackbird Designs sale. Waiting to see what Brenda and Laura say in their next video. There was been a tiny little bit of stash, not a huge amount because I'm back at work and we're out doing stuff, so I don't have the disposable income I had during lockdowns. So I bought a chart from Christina at While Iris Naps. This is Sarah Watson, 1859, which is a cute little, very colourful motif sampler. Which I'm looking at. I'm definitely going to be buying her latest, I think it's until, I can't remember the name, but she's got a beautiful sampler she's just released. I shall have to look it up and put it on the screen. That's definitely gone straight on the wish list. And then I placed a little order with Peakside Needleworks. I've been after Oh Joyous Day for quite a while, and it was finally in stock somewhere when I was looking to order it, so it went straight in the basket. So looking forward to stitching that one at some point. And the other one I picked up was the Mary Lindsay sampler from Chessie and Me. I think that was a Country Stitchers Schoolgirls Sampling Club at some point. But it's been on my wish list for quite a while, again, since someone, probably either Carol or Soulbox Stitcher or Nicole or Brenda and Laura showed it. Another beautiful sampler. So that's me for stitching this month. So we're going to move straight onto the knitting. I do have a knitting finish. I'm not going to put it on because it's too warm for wearing a cowl. I finished my superhero symbol striped cowl from the Knitting Goddess. There you go. This is, so the pattern was by the Knitting Goddess, Joy Macmillan, and it uses her yarn. This is a mix of hand-dyed 4-ply British BFL in the superhero jeans colourway, and hand-dyed Moonbrook kid mole hair and silk in a series of mini skeins in what she calls her rainbows. So, and it was knit holding one strand of each together. Really looking forward. I'm sure I will get plenty of wear out of this when the weather turns later in the year. But very pleased. It was a fun piece to knit and knit up very, very, very quickly. So having finished the cowl, it was time to cast on my next shawl, which, as I mentioned in my last video, was going to be the Ivy Over the Door shawl by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade. This is from the Shawl Society number 3, and I think Helen has it available to buy. You can either buy the collection or just the individual shawls on her sites on, I can't remember which one she uses. It's Gumtree. Is it Gumtree? No, something else. If you Google, you'll find them. I know they're on Ravelry if you're still using Ravelry. I'm trying to avoid it these days, but I find the redesign very hard work. But your mileage may vary on that one. Yeah. So I'm using Kettle Yarn Company Islington Fingering, which is a mix of Blueface Leicester and silk. And here we are. The pale colour, the colourway down the bottom is Julep, and the dark green is Kelp. I really liked the colourway that Helen actually designed the shawl in, which was a sort of a neutral and a darkish green. So when I was choosing my yarn, I was trying to find colours that were similar for that. I'm about 20% of the way through, because if you know Helen's designs, you'll know she very handily gives you she gives you a percentage checklist. So this is 20% of the shawl. And I have just started the second of the lace repeats in the dark green section. So very pleased to have got there on a couple of weeks' work. It's lovely. I love knitting with the Islington. It's a beautiful yarn. I've knit another of Helen's shawls in this yarn. I do like the colours that it's a beautiful yarn to knit with, and I love that dark green. So yeah, very pleased with my progress on that. So she'll just keep growing as we go. So, as you know, I was also working on my sweater knit is a Love Notes by Tin Can Knits. Pattern available on their website. I'm knitting this in West Yorkshire Spinners Fleece. It's 100% Wensleydale, and the gems. It's in the amethyst colourway, which was some yarn I had in my stash and I've been looking for a pattern for. And again, I'm making really good progress on this one. I was just about finishing the yoke last time you saw it, I think. Or had I divided for the sleeves at that point? I really can't remember without going back and looking. So this time round, I've just been working on the body. So it's knitting up really quickly. There's something to be said for just knitting rounds and rounds of stocking stitch and not having to worry too much about counting rows. So yes, so that's coming along nicely. I'm probably going to alter the pattern slightly and make it slightly longer in the body than the pattern calls for. Even on the long version, there's a cropped version, there's a long version, because I'm quite long in the torso. So I like stuff to be even cropped would be seriously cropped on me, and I'm not going, that's not my style really. So I may add, I have plenty of yarn, so I may just add another couple of inches to the body and then do the shaping, just so it actually doesn't flash too much of my stomach at any given time. So that's Love Notes, which again says going to listen. My last knitting whip is the Cliff Walk socks, which, as I said last year, is the piece I knit on when I'm out waiting. It's my travel knit, really. Oh, yeah. This is being knit in some more Knitting Goddess yarn. This is self-striping full play British wool and nylon, and is from the Back to the Discworld Club back in 2016. And this colourway is called God of Evolution. So, progress since you last saw it. I have turned the heel, and I'm about to start on the gusset. It's coming along quite nicely. Yeah, get a few rows in at swimming lessons when we're going. Obviously we missed a few weeks because of we were in isolation, and then son's lesson got cancelled this weekend because there wasn't a teacher. So yeah, I'm really liking the colourway on these on the blue and the greens on this. So that's my knitting. It's coming along quite nicely, one way or another. Right, I actually have quilting to show you this week. I finished piecing my quilt top from my Name of the Rose quilt top that I was working on. I am not going to be able to get the whole thing in the video because it's huge, but I will insert a picture of it. So this is the middle. There we go. I'll give you a flavour. Very pleased to have got all the bits together. This quilt design, it was released as a mystery quilt last year by Sheila Christensen, who's at Mystery Quilter on Instagram, and offered in the UK through the Modern Quilt Club, sorry, Lisa at the Modern Quilt Club. These fabrics are all by Libs Elliott. So I have some more to put a border all the way round, which I'll try and get done next month. And then it will be on to sandwiching it and getting it quilted. I think I will be sending it away to be quilted because it's far too big for me to manage on my machine. I can just about do a single bed size myself. This is almost king size by the time I'm finished. So yeah, I think it'll be going to somebody else. I'll have to see if I can find, Lisa can recommend me someone to get it quilted. But very, very pleased with how it's looking. It's looking lovely. When I've done that, then of course I'll have to start on this year's mystery quilt, which I've not started piecing yet. But I'm only doing a small one on that one, so that'll be easier. Right, and I'm just going to finish off by sharing a handful of books with you. Last time we spoke, I was reading Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell, which I finished. I really, really liked this book. It's incredibly well written. I can absolutely see why it won so many, got so many great reviews and won awards and was on so many shortlists for the book prizes. It's lovely. I've got loads of Maggie O'Farrell on my to read pile. I just need to actually read some of it. When I finished Hamnet, I started this book by Jacinda Maxstone Graham. It's called British Summertime Begins: How We Spent the School Summer Holidays 1930 to 1980. And is a look at what summer holidays used to be like for those of us who grew up before the advent of the personal computer and digital television channels. You can, kids' TV was a couple of hours in the morning and then it disappeared. We're generally just shoved outside to get on with it. Bit of a trip back down memory lane, especially some of the discussions about holidays and where we went away on holiday and what we were expected to do. Yeah, for those of us who grew up in the 70s, very much a trip down memory lane. So yeah, heartily recommend that one. And my current reads, I've got a few books on the go at the moment. I'm flitting around at the moment. I haven't really got much attention span until we finish 2 more weeks of term, and then I'm off for the summer, and it really cannot come soon enough. So for my book club, I'm reading Dorothy L. Sayers' Gaudy Night, which is one of my all-time favourites. So very much enjoying diving back into the world of Harriet Vane and Lord Peter Wimsey. Lord Peter will forever for me be a young Edward Petherbridge, who was the Lord Peter Wimsey in a BBC series in the 1980s. Harriet Vane was played by Harriet Walter. So it was a wonderful series, and Gaudy Night was one of the books they televised. Yeah, so loving that one. The other book I'm reading is called Tom Tiddler's Ground by Ursula Orange. This comes from an imprint called Furrowed Middle Brow by Dean Street Press. I have loads of their books, and I haven't actually read any for Middleborough books, but I hadn't actually read any of them, so I thought I'd better get going. This is about a couple of friends who, one lives in the country, she invites the other one to stay with her during the Second World, is evacuated to stay with her during the Second World War, and it's about them and village life and in the war, and I'm absolutely loving it. But again, I've had to put it down so I can read Gaudy Night. Not exactly heavy going, which is just what's suiting my mood at the moment. Right, I think that's everything. So it was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but I've got to go and prepare for the party now. We're taking them all out to a local park where there's a Go Ape, which is, for those not in the UK, is it's loads of ropes and cargo nets strung between trees. They're all clipped on using harnesses, and for a load of 11-year-old boys, they can just go off and burn some energy and bounce off each other. So I'm looking forward to that, and then we'll have a picnic in the park afterwards. So excitement is mounting in my house for the small boy anyway. So yeah, so I need to go and get ready for that and go and prepare all the party food. So yeah, so I will say goodbye for now. I will hopefully see you at the beginning of August, when it will be a little easier to film, hopefully, because I won't be working. So I'll try and get a video in. We're going away on holiday at the beginning, so the second week in August, so I shall try and record before I go. And I shall try and get this uploaded by next weekend, and see, anyway, I can hear footsteps, so I shall say goodbye and I'll see you all later.